Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for January 31st, 2025. We're going to be looking at some of the player props and some other props for the Super Bowl 59 between the Chiefs and the Eagles, and also be talking about last week's games as well. Kind of like Tuesday's show, but with a different perspective. Before we get into it, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. I'm wearing a fancy, very fancy gray Walter football shirt, and yes, this is the same one from yesterday. So only 2 days in a row, not 3. So we're still in good shape. But you can go to the merch store here, buy that and any other shirt. You may be thinking like, where's the gray shirt? You can actually pick whichever color you want. With any shirt. So they give you all these options, and it's pretty cool. You get 25% off, so that would help us out a lot. You can go to Amazon, buy my books. The most recent one is Jerks to the College Years, where I spent 6 years at Penn State, and I made fun of people, as you can see by the cover here. The other book, I have 2 other books. One of the other ones is How the 2020 MVP Was Stolen, which is an expose about how Brett Favre tried to sabotage Aaron Rodgers. And that it includes the genesis of the nickname No Cookie Jordan Love. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. They are the best way to help support the show. Last night we had a 222 from John Sanders and an ominous 666 from John Sanders the day before. So thank you so much, John. The week before that we had Alan Stafford with 10 and Slew with the 781 super chat to celebrate the birth of his granddaughter. So congratulations, Slew, and thanks once again, guys. I really appreciate it. All right, so we are joined again by Andy Iskoe of thelogicalapproach.com. Andy, how are you?
Well, other than fighting off a little bit of a cough and whatever's going on around town here, I'm doing fine.
Yeah, it's going around everywhere. My son is sick again. I had to end the show early on Tuesday. He slept through it last night, fortunately. So it was a 101 fever, but he's down to 99. Kenny, who lives in Florida, his kids were sick, so he couldn't come on the show yesterday. Now you're telling me you're sick, so I don't understand what's going on here. It's kind of crazy.
I think everybody's being affected with something this winter.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I figured
I just know a lot of people who have from all over the country that I'm in touch with that have it. Mm-hmm. Mine is a relatively mild case, although I can hear it in my voice right now. But I'm not feeling like with a fever or anything like that. It's just annoying.
It is annoying. I had it. I feel like I had it first. Maybe I was like patient 0. Back I think it was like ahead of week 17 or week 18. I had like a 102 fever. It was so nasty. It lasted for a while, and then finally went away. And then unfortunately my kids had it. My son had it. Then my daughter had it. My son had it again. So it just won't go away. My mom had
it. Hopefully it misses you this time.
Yeah. Hopefully I don't get it again.
I'll just go around.
My son was he was laying in bed with me because my wife had to go to work, so he couldn't go to school. So he was just at home with me. I was trying to sleep more than 2 hours. And he just like coughed.
I hope one of the 2 teams gets it in about another 10 days.
All right. He just like coughed in my face. I'm like, oh man.
Oh, nice.
So I just made sure to jack up on vitamin C and vitamin D. So hopefully
maybe
I don't get it again.
Maybe if you have a COVID mask left over, you could put it on him.
I don't know. Maybe in the car somewhere. I have no
idea. Although at his age and his size, it might cover the whole face.
Yeah. I
couldn't see then. That wouldn't be good.
Right. Exactly. Okay. I figured we could delve into. Are you in California or something like that? Not quite. So we could delve into.
No, the answer you should have had there is not quite, dude.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. All right. So, what were your impressions from last week's games? We had a blowout in the first one. It wasn't it wasn't that lopsided to begin with. It was 14-12 at some point. But then the Eagles ran away with it. The Redskins had a bunch of turnovers, and then the final game was kind of jaded by a lot of talk about the game being rigged. So I don't know where you wanted to start. Like, what were your impressions of last week's games?
Well, I was actually impressed with the way Washington played. Despite the turnovers, they really were able to have success moving the ball. Unfortunately, they couldn't hold on to it several times. And the Philly defense, which is very good at creating turnovers, did exactly that. My plays in the game, I actually leaned to Philadelphia, but I ended up playing them minus the 3.5 in the first half. That didn't look very good when it was 14-12 and just over 2 minutes to go, but of course it ended up being 27-15 after Washington got a field goal right to close out the half. But the play that I really liked, and I think I mentioned it last week, was I liked the over in the game, and didn't expect Philadelphia to go over the total by itself, but sometimes those games turn out that way. And the reason why I wasn't as excited about laying the 6 points or 5.5, I guess, whatever you could have gotten with Philly, is because Washington, even in this run in the playoffs, had shown a knack for playing well in the fourth quarter and really throughout the season. I mean, what were all those games? Those 5 games where they ended up winning the game. Forget about covering; they were winning the game in the final play or so. So that showed me a lot of intestinal fortitude. Unfortunately, the turnovers were I shouldn't say unfortunately, because I did okay with the game. I just didn't make a big play at all on the full game as I did on the first half and the total. But nonetheless, Washington was just a little bit too far behind, but they continued to play well. And I think Washington will be one of those chic teams that people will look to play next year, even though they'll be coming off of a 12-win season. I would think that Washington will be the second choice in the NFC East behind Philadelphia. Dallas has, I think, too much ground to make up. But, let's see what happens in the offseason with what Dallas does. I'm not quite sure what to think of the coaching hire, although Jerry Jones feels thrilled about it because it probably cost him it saved him several $1 million for the season as far as what he would pay the more experienced and accomplished head coach. But I thought Washington played relatively well, though maybe the inexperience, or maybe it was just Philadelphia's defense. And, of course, Philadelphia played basically a complete game. They had, of course, Jalen Hurts got more involved in the passing game. In fact, I heard a lot of the commentators say before the game that what Philadelphia had to do was get A.J. Brown involved, make sure they target him on every drive to keep him involved in the game. Well, they were almost perfect in that, except for the fact that they couldn't do it on the first drive. And that was because Saquon Barkley took the first play 60 yards for the touchdown. Yep. So Philadelphia played a very strong game. I liked some of what their defense did. I liked the offensive line play. Of course, they had the injuries at center, but they were able to overcome that. And I guess Bergens will be okay for the Super Bowl because his absence was clearly felt by what the Washington defense, what their line was able to do early in the game. So I thought Philadelphia played a solid game. As far as the second game goes, well, Buffalo had its chances, but Kansas City showed why it's Kansas City. Once again, they're now 17 for 17 in their last one-score games, and they just have a knack. You wonder if Kansas City's in the heads of Buffalo. But then again, Buffalo had their opportunities, and certainly when they had an opportunity for two-point conversions, some of their play selection choices didn't make a lot of sense. I'd almost like to think that at Philadelphia, I think the two great moments in the Philadelphia game were when after Shipley had that big run and they wanted to give him the touchdown and he finally scored, and Barkley ran as fast as he could to get out there to congratulate him. And then as they're running back, Shipley and Barkley are running back to the Philadelphia sideline, to the Philadelphia bench. It looked as though Barkley scored the touchdown. He was just a more demonstrative with excitement. I thought that was nice. And then, of course, with Lovu, those 4 or 5 attempts to just jump over the pile was kind of humorous, especially when the official said, "You know what, guys, we can give you a score if you keep doing this. We just concede the touchdown." But what I thought that Philadelphia might consider doing is, line up in the formation, but have like 2 backs right behind Hurts, and knowing what Luvo was going to do, just step back, let the play go off, do a little toss to the running back who would have a full back ahead of him, block him, and he'd probably go in unscathed around let's say the left end possibly. So I thought that they might do that, and I thought Buffalo might want to try something like that because when they line up in that formation, you are expecting them to run that play, but you still have a little bit of an advantage, especially if you go with a quick count to catch the defense off guard. They're prepared to just charge right ahead. You might be able to throw a little underhand toss to a running back and have him go around the right side if you have another blocker there to take out whatever spy they're using, who's there just in case the quarterback doesn't do what everyone expects him to do. So I thought Buffalo could have called a couple of better play calls there, but not surprised that it was a close game. I expected that to be the case, and I did have the Chiefs in the game for reasons we talked about last week, that I just thought that, you're basically a pick 'em game, and you got Kansas City at home. And much as I would have liked to have seen Buffalo win because I had some futures on them in the exactas, I'm okay because I have Chiefs over Eagles and Eagles over Chiefs as the exacta for the Super Bowl. So maybe I will know who I'm rooting for after I explain one of my props later on.
What are the odds on that? Do you remember what the odds on those are?
I think it's 59-1 Eagles over Chiefs, and I think it's 35-1 with Chiefs over Eagles. But I also have the Chiefs at 9-1 just to win the game from a play I made 15 minutes after last year's Super Bowl ended.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's pretty sweet. I do have the Eagles at 17-1. I bet 200 to win 3,400 on that. So hopefully that comes through. I was going to ask. I asked Evan this on Tuesday. I wanted to get your opinion. How would you? And I do have some bonus bets on the Chiefs. So if the Chiefs win, I win. I think I win like $1,000 or something, like from bonus bets. But just like ignoring that, how would you hedge or middle that if you only had the Eagles? I brought up the possibility of betting Chiefs plus 3.5 minus 210 to try to middle it, because if the Chiefs win, or sorry, if the Eagles win by 1, 2, or 3, you win both bets.
Well, 3.5 is a nice number to take, especially since, first of all, the last 3 Super Bowls have each been decided by exactly 3 points, and the one in the middle, the one 2 years ago, was Chiefs 38, Eagles 35. So that could be a key number. We saw Buffalo and Kansas City, 3 points as well. Of course, landing on 3 is a lot more difficult these days because of the 2-point conversions, the going for it on 4th down, etc. Make or miss the 2-point conversions could have a big impact on whether or not 3 shows up. It happened. Look, it was 22-21 last week with Bills over the Chiefs, and they didn't make the 2-point conversion, and yet it still got to a 3-point decision without a safety being involved.
Yeah. So. What would you do if you're in my?
I'm sorry, without a field goal to go from a 1-point deficit to a 2-point lead for Kansas City.
Yeah,
I might consider. Yeah, I might consider. Actually, what you might consider is doing an in-game play. See how it unfolds. Yeah. Maybe if Philadelphia gets out to a nice lead, maybe you either don't do anything, or you get Kansas City plus a nice number where you're not laying much juice.
Yeah.
Let's say Philadelphia's up 10-0, and let's say it's early second quarter. You might get Kansas City plus 3.5, and maybe they'll be plus 120 or something at that point.
Yeah, my plan was to do it pregame, but not bet the whole amount that I was going to. And just try to do that. Yeah, kind of dictate how the game flow goes.
Pick your spots. Yeah.
And it's really frustrating because I wrote on the site that I wanted to bet the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl at some point, and I said, they'll lose a few games in the regular season. They always do. They lost to the Raiders last year at Christmas. They lost to the Packers on Sunday Night Football, but they never lost, so I never had a chance to bet them. So the only bets I put on the Chiefs were bonus bets that were basically free, and it just was never a good number. I just thought that it might be a good hedge for my Eagles.
So what do you have Kansas City at now, effectively?
It's without spending a dime. I think I win like about $1,000.
Oh, okay, that's right. So it's basically zero. So in other words, you have $1,000. Well, whatever it would take, whatever odds, you probably got Kansas City, depending upon you played it, maybe at 2-1 or 3-2 or something like that late.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a little earlier than that, because then I started betting the Bills once they had better numbers. But it was. I'm actually kind of curious to see what the odds were. But I agree with what you said. I think that doing it live makes the most sense. Evan didn't like my plus 3.5 minus 210 strategy because he thought minus 210 was too much. What he suggested was to.
Well, that's by the way, that's why I came up with the in-game as possible an alternative. Yeah, 210 would be too much, but at that point, who knows what the score in the game would be? It might be 7-0 Eagles or something.
Yeah. So I got the Chiefs at 5-1. This was back in
maybe late October, Thanksgiving, Halloween or something.
I did it twice. Once, on FanDuel at least. Once was right after Thanksgiving, and the other one was right before Christmas.
Oh, okay. So that was pretty late. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're both 5-1.
That's when the Lions were probably the favorites, and Buffalo might have been second choice.
Yeah.
And Kansas City, even though they had only one loss at the time, we're winning all those close games.
Yeah, right. They could have lost to the Raiders on Black Friday. They could have lost to the Broncos with that blocked field goal. They could have lost to the Panthers. There's so many instances.
Could have lost to the Ravens on opening night if the guy his foot was a little smaller. Could have lost the next week when they had to kick the last second field goal to beat Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta, there were many opportunities. Yeah,
week 3, Atlanta almost got them.
Right.
A touchdown was overturned. What was the other ones? There were a couple other games where they could have lost. The Chargers, the second Chargers game was 1917. So there have been so many instances where they almost lost and they just didn't get a good opportunity to get a good number. But I do think
which by the way, at the current line of -1.5, I cannot argue. Even if you like Philadelphia a lot, I cannot argue with anyone who wants to bet Kansas City.
Oh yeah, I can't either. I mean, they Patrick Mahomes. I think, we're going to get into the picks next week, but I think the Eagles are the better team, but the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly, and right. they have the experience, and they know they can do it because they've been doing it 17 straight times.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't remember if any of those 17 wins were by exactly 1 point, where the 1.5 would cost you. Although a lot of people also might, at that price, rather than take a chance on that, just lay a little bit on the money line if you like Kansas City, because Kansas City's been winning these games. It's not that they've been covering these games; they've been winning games, and the only number that hurts you is a 1, or maybe I guess 1 would be a push if they won by 1, but maybe it's worth a little bit. Although I would generally say at -1.5, I'd still prefer to play Kansas City at the -110 or -108 or wherever you can get it at straight.
Yeah, they won 1 game by 1. It was the Cincinnati game in week 2.
What was that, 26-25 or something like that?
Yeah. They had a couple 2-point wins, but only 1 point win. So I totally agree with what you're saying. Evan suggested on Tuesday, I don't know how you feel about this too, parlay the Chiefs +3.5 with like an easy prop, like you can scale down, for example, Patrick Mahomes over 175 passing yards, or Saquon Barkley over 70 rushing yards or 60 rushing yards. Just to bring
it also depends, because here in Vegas there are limited props that you can parlay because they don't want that correlated parlay. Like, for example, for Patrick Mahomes to pass over 250 yards, let's say, and have over 20.5 completions or something like that. So I know that offshore places and the FanDuels, etc., are much more liberal as far as what they would let you parlay. But yes, I could see that as a strategy. What was that? What was Evan saying? Parlaying the money line on Kansas City?
No, parlaying the Chiefs +3.5.
+3.5. Yeah.
Yeah, parlaying that with some props. It doesn't even have to be Chiefs props. It could be like Saquon Barkley over 60 rushing yards, or
under over 3.5 field goals in the game, or whatever it was. If you liked, whatever one you liked, that you said that you determined according to your analysis, had a positive expectation.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I'm going to do that, because like, what if Saquon Barkley goes down, and at that point I'm going to lose everything? Like, it's just it's pretty rough. So I do like the suggestion of the in-game, and Evan recommended that as well. So I think I'm not going to bet the full amount like I would normally on the Chiefs. I think I will do some pregame and some in-game. So
well, you already have what'd you say, 17-1 on the Eagles?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're either going to collect 3,400, or you're going to collect 1,000, right?
Right.
If the Chiefs win.
Yeah.
And if they collect on the Chiefs, it doesn't cost you any cash.
Right.
I mean, it's an $800 win if you throw out the 200 you played on the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I'm sorry, on the Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I want a middle. I want to try to get both.
The +3.5 is good.
Yeah, just raise my potential winnings with the Chiefs in that case. Before we get to these props, I wanted to ask you about like what everyone's talking about from the Chiefs-Bill game. There were a number of calls that went against the Bills. Obviously, that 4th-and-1 play, and John Sanders.
Oh, you mean the 4th-and-1 play where the referee who was right there by the yard marker said it's a first down, and the one who came from the other side of the field said no, no, no.
The one who didn't see the play.
Yeah, or was blocked out by the bodies. But I thought that was a terrible decision. I don't remember what was that challenged. I don't think so.
It was challenged.
Was it? And they upheld the decision on the field.
They did. I thought that was unbelievable. I thought it was very obvious he got to the 40, and like they put the ball to 41. I just don't get it. And John Sanders here commenting, the former head of officials literally said the refs cost the Bills the game today. I've never seen that before. Everyone is saying there was a poll on Twitter, and it had about 6,000 responses to it. And the poll just said, do you think the NFL is rigged? And 50% of the responders, I think it was 54%, said yes. So I think that even if the NFL is not rigged, that has an image problem. Like, what do you think about this?
Yeah. No, we've been talking about that before. In fact, we were talking about it years ago. I was talking about it as far as when we were talking about legalizing gambling and the NFL, being so concerned about gambling, and now they're partners in it. So they obviously have a monetary interest. So they have to be extra careful about their image, which is something that they were concerned about before they were not involved in gambling. And they imposed it vigorously to the point where here in Vegas for many years, we couldn't refer to it as the Super Bowl. We had to refer to it as the big game. Of course, my answer to that was, you would have to, if you spelt it differently, the Souper, S-O-U-P-E-R bowl, you could probably get away with it, especially if you had those words there, because you're basically saying the same thing. That's how silly it was back then. And now they're embracing it. And of course, we've already had a Super Bowl here in Las Vegas. But I felt that years ago, we all know, I think it's common knowledge that if someone's going to fix a game, you don't do it through the players, you do it through the referees. They can throw that flag or not throw that flag anytime they want. So I've always been, and I think maybe it was Jim Nance or one of the people finally came around and said what I've been saying is that they should allow any penalty that's like a 10-yard or more or spot a foul penalty be reviewable or challengeable. Yeah. And if there's and there should even be, if a coach feels that a personal foul penalty, 15-yard penalty, should have been called on a play, they can challenge it and the refs can review it, because we've seen it. I forget what game it was this past weekend or the week before, where there was an obvious face mask play that wasn't called that would have been enabled to. Now the legals say, but it might delay the flow of the game. NFL, but you want your game to be above board. Why have all these conspiracy theorists talking more about the conspiracy theory than the game itself? So I felt that they should be able to do something about making those kind of plays reviewable at any time. And what do they call it? I think in soccer, replay assist or something, or video assist, something along those lines, where get the call right. Because number one, these officials are making split-second calls. The game is just so fast. You remember, what was it, the game against the Texans, where they called the roughing, the hit to the head on the Texans? And I think if you looked at the replay, they never touched Mahomes' helmet. It slid under the two Texan helmets that hit each other. Okay, well, you have to be able to review something that when you're talking about a 15-yard penalty or something like that, you have to be able to review it, because sometimes the refs don't have the right angle, and sometimes they just miss it because they're looking, elsewhere. So I think if the NFL is really concerned about the image of its game, which it should be, because, if all of a sudden something comes out and they find out that, any game, or certainly multiple games, are rigged or played according to a script or something, which you can't really do because the players still have to execute. So you can't say that, that pass that Buffalo missed on the 4th down, that scripted play. Now, you can't do that because, you don't know that the guy's going to be able to be in position to make the catch. So really, the way that you get to it is through the officials, and the officials control so much of the game because of that little yellow hanky that they have. They can throw it at any time or not throw it at any time, and that's why those, delay a game, no problem with that. Okay, but I mean, I could even make a case on holding penalties. Where if it's a blatant hold, maybe the coach won't challenge it. But if it's really very questionable, okay, maybe they should be allowed to. Though I would still say, 10-yard penalties, maybe not so bad, but 15 yards or even defensive holding where you get a first down. You take a look at defensive holding and certainly pass interference calls, the receiver and the defensive back are always going at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They could call that any way they want, and that was the game. And what was it? Was it the Saints and the Vikings? I think was that the game, or maybe the Rams were involved, where they actually changed the rule for the following season.
Yeah, Saints Rams. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That they then took out, but the NFL. If all of a sudden people start thinking it's like pro wrestling, there goes their multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah. I know
They have to be concerned.
we've seen it before. We had a comment here. Make America Great Again says just like Tim Donaghy, he wasn't rigging games for the Lakers. I mean, I don't know if like you can say for certain if the NFL is rigged. Like saying like absolutely not. It's like, well, the NBA was rigged once upon a time.
Yeah. Well, that was proven. I don't know that it's been proven in the in the NFL. I don't think the games are rigged in the NFL.
Right.
But I can understand. But I can understand why people could say, "I'm not so sure." I can understand that.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Like it's not proven. You can't say for sure. But I don't think you can definitively say yes or no. Just because,
excuse me.
Bless you. I just think because
couldn't get to the mute button in time.
Yeah. Like if you say definitely no, you have to consider Tim Donaghy and the fact that there could be some rogue officials who do this. But if you say definitely yes, like you have no proof of that outside of the Chiefs getting every.
I'm sure that someone out there has been looking at probably to try and prove something like that. That they would have to prove that. Well, isn't it interesting how this referee always calls a penalty on the offensive team if it's 3rd and 2 and they make it by half a yard? So someone would be doing that kind of research where they would not just talk about, well, when this official refs, the games always go over. It might be more the case of when this official throws, they have stats, I think. I forget what the website is, but they have stats in a whole bunch of different categories about the individual refs. And I know that there are a lot of folks who are really good with statistical analysis and the standard deviations that say that something's a lot less likely to be happening by chance than perhaps there's something to it.
Yeah. I agree with what you said. I mean, if you're going to rig a game, it's going to be with the officials or a kicker. I don't know if I told you, my dad was very angry about Jake Elliott because he had the
Eagles
you did. -7.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it, it's one of those two paths. But yeah, and again, I don't think you can definitively say yes or no. It's just you just don't have the evidence. All right, let's get into these props. Have you bet any props, or have you looked at any props? Like, what amount of research have you done?
Well, there's one that I play every year because it's a plus price, and usually it's independent of how you think the game will go, and that's why I said before. In fact, I'll talk about that prop now. I said now you'll know who I'll be rooting for once the first score of the game is made, because I said, will the team that scores first win the game? And the odds on that, in fact, at South Point, I was over there yesterday, the answer, yes, they will win the game, is -180. No, they will not end up winning the game. It's +160. I took the +160. And if you go back over the last 7-8 years, it's about 50-50, which means it's almost an even money bet. Or should it? Now, there was a period in the early 2010s where the team that scored first won like 6 straight. But now, the last 8 years, I think it's like 4-4.
I don't think it's even just the Super Bowl. I mean, we saw last week. Was it the Redskins scored first in the NFC Championship? In the divisional round, the Ravens scored a touchdown first for the Bills. The Bills eventually won. So this happens all the time.
I think Denver scored first against Buffalo in the wild card game.
Yeah, the Troy Franklin pass. Yeah. This happens all the time. You're right.
Yeah.
I think +160 is a phenomenal number.
Well, I think a lot of it also has to go with the general public being so heavily involved. Oh yeah, the team that wins the game is going to be the team that scores first.
Right.
I mean, it's understandable thinking. It's not necessarily accurate thinking, but it makes sense. It's just like the public says. They love the yes and they love the over, which means there's always value on the no and the under.
Yeah, exactly. It seems so logical. So, of course they're going to win.
Yeah.
-180 is a good number.
The best example of that is the price on. Let me see. I'll have to leave the room for a moment to get it. I think because I think I have it in another book. But the prop on will either team score 3 straight times? Excluding extra points and 2-point conversions. And the people say, well, it's a Super Bowl. These teams are so good. Yeah, you're not going to have 3 straight scores. Yeah, but the yes is always priced at like minus 360, and the no is plus 240 because it happens more often than you think. And in fact, one of the examples they always use is remember the that game between the Rams and the Titans.
Yeah.
That was 16-0, and then what was it? Houston caught up, I think it was, to make it 16-16.
Yeah.
If I remember something like that, and then it was that was a 23-16 when Dyson ended up the yard short, whatever. So,
yeah.
But I mean that's just that's like the ultimate example because both teams did it, but it happens more than not in a Super Bowl. I think it happened last year, if I recall. I'm not positive on that, but I do believe it did. I have it somewhere here.
Well, the Chiefs mounted a comeback, so I assume that happened. I think Evan mentioned that one as well on Tuesday. He
With the three scores.
Yeah, he brought that up. Anything else before we get to?
No, but by the way, I generally do not like laying big numbers in the Super Bowl. There are so many props available. I'd rather find one that I feel a lot more comfortable at. Even minus 110 plus a price. The Westgate is going to have, and I think they're in fact probably right now they're just getting ready to distribute it or posting it on their boards. And I'm going to go over there probably tomorrow or Saturday, pick up a packet or two. But in any event, they're going to have between 400 and 500 props up there. So you know that ignoring like a lot of the index props, probably 250 of them will be yes, no, over-unders. Okay? So of those, I'm sure that people, even if they want 10 props or whatever, they can find 10 props that are at the plus. Because remember, it's just one game. And yeah, maybe over the course of most games, a certain prop has, let's say, a 62% chance of hitting, so I'm going to play it. Yeah, well, you know what? In the Super Bowl, it's either going to be 0 or 100. It's either going to hit it or it's not going to hit it. You're not going to have multiple chances to hit the same prop in the same game. So you got to make a decision. So, I use the example of the safety always used to be, I saw one place where, let's say, well, I'll go back to when I think it was the Denver game where the first scoring play of the game was the safety. I think that was one when
Denver, Seattle.
Peyton Manning got sacked. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that was priced at minus 1,300 for the no safety, plus 900 for there will be a safety.
Right.
And I just have a little fun every year playing the safety. And of course, it doesn't hit most years, but it only had to hit once. When I got that plus 900, I'm good for the next 8 years. Okay. Yeah. Right. However, if I bet the no in that game, I'm out 1,300. Now it's going to take me 13 years to get even.
Yeah.
However, the thing is, there was a safety in 3 straight Super Bowls. So let's use those numbers. Plus 900, plus 900, plus 900. Okay, I got 2,700 profit in 3 years. It'll take me 27 years to give it all back. By playing the under, by playing the plus price. Meanwhile, the people who laid the 1,300 for those 3 years, they're out 3,900. It's going to take them 39 years just to get even.
You imagine like 39
years. And they'd be laying 1,300 all the time to do it and hope that it just goes 39 straight years of no.
Right. Can you imagine like 39 years later, like I finally broke even on this.
Finally got a profit. Yeah. But I mean, that's why even though I would say, and I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm saying that probably the no in that case is probably more like around 1,700, minus 17 to 1 or something.
Uh-huh.
But they couldn't do minus 1,700 if they wanted to give a fair number on the take back. And they didn't want to make it too high on the take back. So maybe they said, you know what? Because I think they know from history that, the wise guys, the professionals, the sharps, they're going to lay the price because they know the odds are very small. They know that this is minus 1,300. It should be minus 1,500. Mm-hmm. So they don't mind laying those big numbers, except when something like that happens once, twice, 3 times in a row.
Exactly.
So that's why I prefer to look at now, for example, I played MVP. I played two props on MVP, one on Philly, one on Kansas City. They were both 100 to 1. Chris Jones on Kansas City, and Jalen on the Eagles.
Carter, yeah. I'm trying to find.
I don't expect to win those, but at those odds, I took a shot because it could be one of those games where the defense really rises up, and we know what both defensive lines can do.
Yeah, I don't know. Where is I'm not seeing MVP on FanDuel. I don't understand why it's hidden, or maybe
what's that? Wait, which one?
And you just said MVP. I'm just trying to find MVPs.
Let me maybe across the top.
Yeah,
or maybe the end, or maybe at the very beginning, or no, maybe yeah.
Like I feel like it'll be on their popular. I'm not seeing MVP anywhere. Maybe I can switch to
No,
draft.
I think it would be across the top. One of the ones you have across the top that you were going through.
Yeah,
If you go all the way to the left or all the way to the right, you go through them all because that's the one where they have a whole bunch of alternatives.
yeah. Popular same game parlay. I don't see this. Let me go to DraftKings. Sometimes FanDuel takes their odds off at night for some reason. I don't know. Yeah, Super Bowl MVP. Let's go to DraftKings here. So you had Jalen Carter.
At 100 to 1.
Okay, here at DraftKings is 70 to 1. So
yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it 70, 80 to 1 here at a couple of places in Vegas today.
Yeah, Chris Jones is 60 to 1. So you got two great numbers on the two
on
best
both of those
players.
On the two guys who are most likely. I mean, look, you could go to a defensive player who makes 3 interceptions.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we've had some random linebackers win. Remember, like Malcolm Smith or something for the was it for the Seahawks won one year.
Okay.
Larry Brown won for the Cowboys. He was a corner
years ago.
Yeah. So sometimes there are just some random guys who just win MVP, and then you never hear from them again. But I mean, if there is going to be defensive players, either Chris Jones or Jalen Carter, I agree. I actually like Carter better. I trust the Eagles' interior blocking more than the Chiefs if Joe Thuney has to go to the left tackle. That is my lean there, but I do like both a lot. I might sprinkle on them as well. But like I said, I've always said I always say this. Definitely shop around because this 61-71, you could definitely find better odds.
Now, by the way, what's the price on Mahomes for MVP plus 120?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you think the Chiefs are going to win, maybe you play Mahomes for the MVP and get plus 120 instead of laying whatever you're laying to lay the 1.5.
Yeah, that's you can do that as well.
I mean, now with the Eagles, you could do Barkley and maybe Hurts. But that way, you still have to invest more, even though they're both. I think what's Barkley up there? I see plus 260, and what's Hurts?
350
plus 350. Yeah, you could probably do something like that too.
I'm kicking myself because last week before the Redskins game, they were both 5-1. And obviously, if they lose, those bets are ruined. But
you mean Super Bowl MVP before the championship games?
Yes.
Yeah, they're always going to be higher for everybody because there's no assurance that those players are going to make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. I just felt so strongly about the Eagles last week that I thought that grabbing one of them made sense.
Did you do that?
No, I didn't. I got talked out of it, so I didn't. I always feel like I get talked out of like good deals. Like this was long ago. I mean, we're going to stocks now, but like back in 2007 or 2008, I saw like General Electric was like so low. It was like
that's funny because that's also a stock that I got in at that time. And it ended up going to like 28, and then it went back down again. So I got out in the low to mid 20s when I was satisfied.
Yeah, it was like 5 or 6 a share, and I was like, oh, let me buy this. And then I talked to someone. They're like, no, this is terrible. I think it was someone at the bank, so I didn't buy. And yeah, you're right. I think it wasn't even 30 a share. It was 25.
Yeah, it might have. Then it went back down.
And then they plummeted, and then it's gone up again. So well,
of course, it's had a reverse stock split.
Yes, that's true.
I forget what it went up to like 80 or something when it did like, I don't know, was it 4-1 or 5-1 reverse split or something?
Yeah, one of the reverse splits that was not too bad because usually when a stock reverse splits, they're trying to avoid delisting. And that was not the case with General Electric. It was I don't know why they did that, but anyway. So to get off tangent there, if I were to bet the MVP, I think I would play Barkley. And then I would take some long shots like you did. I think Chris Jones and Jalen Carter makes a lot of sense. I don't really like. I don't know like, who else could do it.
It's hard because if it's a receiver who has a great game, it would be the quarterback often who gets it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's tough for it to be a receiver unless they we saw Cooper Kupp. We saw what's his
Edelman for the Patriots that one year, I think.
Yeah, Deion Branch for the Patriots in the third Super Bowl that they won. It happens occasionally, but I agree it's going to be tough for a receiver. So I would go with the running back.
I mean, I'll tell you what though, if there were a receiver, And I don't know what the odds are. I got to guess they got to be somewhere around 35 or 40 to 1. I can't see it on the screen here, but maybe you can. Goddard.
Goddard is 120 to 1 here.
That's that's not a terrible choice. Although again, he'd have to score. He'd have to get like 3 touchdowns and maybe one of them on a run.
Yeah. I thought when you said receiver and you were saying like 25, 30 to 1, I thought you were pointing to Xavier Worthy. And I would say
I was giving that some consideration, but he'd probably need to do an awful lot. And I think that Mahomes relies so much on Kelsey that Worthy might not. And he doesn't always have the best set of hands.
Yeah,
he's good once he catches it.
Yeah, I was just thinking Worthy because he can get there without Mahomes. Like he can get some end arounds, and what if he gets an end around and goes the distance with his speed? Like what if he scores 2 touchdowns without Mahomes throwing to him? Like that could definitely happen. If that occurs, then I do think that he would MVP. And then I feel like narrative wise, I saw some rumors that Travis Kelce is going to propose to Taylor Swift. So what? If
I don't know. I've heard those. I think that's wishful thinking more than anything else. Unless someone got to Travis Kelce and says, I'll give you $100,000 for you to give her as an engagement gift if you propose, because then he can go bet on the prop. Because I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of Taylor Swift props. I don't know that you can have it here in the in Nevada unless they phrase it correctly, because it's got to be something that's basically decided on the field. But offshore, they can do pretty much anything. And I wouldn't be, how many times will the announcer mention her name? How many times will they show her in the booth during the game?
Right.
Those kind of things that you could do. But yeah, there'll be some things like that. And yes, I heard that, that one of the rumors was he would not only propose to her, he would retire at the same time, announce his retirement.
I heard that too.
Which, by the way, I would not think would be the case. And they were talking about Andy Reid possibly retiring. I don't know that that anyone on that team would want to retire if they've been part of the first 3 Pete Super Bowl teams. I think it's just a natural instinct of the athlete and the coach. Hey, we've done 3, we made history. Let's extend history. Which one thing for John Elway when he went out after back-to-back Super Bowl wins. That's different.
Right, exactly.
He was at the end of his career.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he was aging out anyway. I mean, Andy Reid can keep coaching. Kelsey can keep playing. At some point, like you have to see how long you can go with the streak. Like what if you have a 4P? What if you have a 5P? Like you could just make this so impressive that it will never be beaten again. I mean, we've never even had a 3-peat. Like, what if they win 5 in a row or 6 in a row?
Each year the British Oxford English Dictionary comes up with the words of the year.
Yeah.
I wonder if one of the words this year will be Bumblerooski.
Right.
You see that commercial. You see that commercial like every 3rd or 4th commercial during these playoff games.
Yeah. I know our Saturday co-host Tom, who is he's my partner in the Super Contest, Holmes Hall Heroes. He hates that commercial with a passion so much that he was so depressed when the Chiefs won last week. He's like, I don't want to see this commercial anymore. I don't want to see Chiefs anymore. So
by the way, my favorite commercial that's running these days is the basketball one with the boyfriend who's wearing the Duke T-shirt, shows up to meet his girlfriend and the parents and all that, and you see all the Tar Heel stuff in there, and then so he just says okay, and he closes the door, walks away, and then they pull down the shade with the UNC logo on it. That one's getting a lot of run now. That's a clever one.
That's a really good one. But I think if you're the boyfriend, you kind of dodged a bullet with that family. Like if you're that obsessed with a college team, that you don't welcome a visitor in your house, like you probably don't want to be associated with their family. So I thought about that.
You know what? Next year they're going to have the same commercial, but they're going to end up eloping.
Right.
She's going to get up. She's going to give that scowl look to her parents, and she's going to rip off her North Carolina T-shirt, show a Duke T-shirt, and they're going to walk off into the sunset. That's my that's my guess for next year.
I do think they're going to run with that commercial because it's so it was received so well.
It's understated. It's clever, but it's understated, which is what makes it have that impact. Yeah,
100%. John asking, if you're the national anthem singer, what's to prevent the singer from betting the over or the under?
Nothing.
Nothing. But you're so limited with it. Like a lot of the sports books won't let you bet more than $100 or maybe $200 on some.
And I don't even believe you can do that in Vegas.
Yeah, you'd have to do it offshore
Yeah.
or like FanDuel, DraftKings, etc. But they
Remember,
usually,
it's only been 5 or 6 years that we could here in Vegas legally bet on Super Bowl MVP
that's wild to me.
because it wasn't decided on the field. But then they realized that there are so many people who are involved in the voting, and there's so many options to bet that it's one thing. Even betting the Heisman Trophy we can do now. But that's different. And I don't know when they take it down or if they do take it down. But, late in the year when there's an obvious favorite, everybody comes down and they make it like minus 800 or something. I forget what Travis Hunter was this year. I think it was like minus 450 or something like the week before. But, when you've got a vote that's going to be determined on things that have not yet happened, like what's going to happen in the game, who's going to be the MVP. The game can't be rigged that Patrick Mahomes is going to be the MVP and Philadelphia goes out and wins 35-10.
Right. Exactly.
So I can understand they finally came around to that way of thinking, but yeah, for the most part, it has to be something determined on the field of play. Now that also means here in Vegas and probably offshore too, we have a lot of cross sport props. Total number of interceptions versus Golden Knights goals and assists or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I've seen those as well. But again, once again, like you're pretty limited on these random bets. I find it like fascinating that in Las Vegas, which is known for like the betting, like you don't have a lot of options, like nearly as much as you have on like FanDuel, DraftKings, etc. Because I told you the story. I think when I went to Vegas 2 years ago, and it's either the Scottish Open or I think it was the Scottish Open, or no.
Yeah, that's the one that's usually the week before the British Open.
I think it was the British Open, and it was ahead of the day two. So day one just finished, and I was staying at Park MGM, which is a dump, but I was staying there, and I went to the window, and I said, "You guys have live betting on golf?" And the guy looked at me like I had three heads. Like he's like, "No, we don't have that here." I'm like, I'm like, we have that online, like even BetMGM, like the website. And he's like, we're not online. I'm like, you're in Las Vegas. Like, what are you talking about? How do you not have live betting? It's crazy to me.
I think they probably had an app, but maybe what he meant was it's not on our app, for instance, because you can only use the app inside the state of Nevada. So maybe what he was saying was that we don't have it at all in Nevada, but it's different from MGM nationwide.
Right. That's
a different operation.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like they should have more options in Vegas, but that's
our gaming commission has been extremely conservative for many, many years, and we still can't get legally FanDuel or DraftKings in here.
I was disappointed with that when I visited.
Over the summer.
I should have known. I wanted to play some baseball or something, some DraftKings baseball, and I couldn't. You actually have to sign up for the contest before you enter. You can sign up for a contest and edit your lineup, but you can't enter the contest once you're there. But you
say that again.
So
this is what fantasy stuff, right?
Yeah, like daily fantasy. Yeah,
right. That you can't. You have to do what now? You can't do what?
If I wanted to play a contest on DraftKings, I could enter it here in Pennsylvania.
Right.
I could set a lineup, whatever. Then when I'm in Vegas, I can edit the lineup and make changes to it.
Right.
As long as I entered it here, but I can't enter the lineup in Las Vegas. So
okay. I thought you were talking about entering the contest in Las Vegas. You can't do.
No, you can't enter the contest.
So in other words, you can make adjustments to a lineup that you've already set in Pennsylvania or New Jersey or wherever you do it, as long as it's not in Nevada, because you can't do it. And but if like for example, let's say you came out here during the season, and you're busy and everything, and you fly out on say Thursday afternoon, and you arrive in Vegas, and then all of a sudden you realize, I didn't set my lineup for this week. You're out of luck. Unless, and I don't know if they have it in California or not, but you can always take a little drive down to Arizona or a 90-minute drive down to Arizona and do it. I think they have it in Arizona.
At that point, I probably ask my wife to just click enter, just click random players, and then 6 hours later, I would edit the lineup just because if you do it right away, they're like, wait a second,
Yeah.
how'd you transport?
No, that's the same thing when I'm entering selections. Let's say for you in the Westgate contest, okay?
Yes.
That if you try to view your, let's say you send me your selections, and half an hour later you want to check to see if they've been selected. Okay, and you have my password and all that I use for the contest, and you go in there, and whether you see that the selections have been entered or not, let's assume they haven't been entered. Okay, so that you do that a half hour after you send me. Let's say 10 minutes after you check that, if I go in and enter the selections, they'll lock me out for about an hour, because they will then assume that what happened is that you already tried to enter them from outside the state because of GPS, and so you can't possibly have gone from where your GPS location was in Pennsylvania. Okay, you couldn't have gotten into Nevada in 40 minutes or whatever.
Right.
So it's basically the same concept there, and they are very strict on some of that stuff as far as that. Sometimes the GPS isn't quite exact, but I've never really had a severe problem with it. That's why I tell people, when you send me your selections, give me like 3 or 4 hours before you check, just in case I don't get around to it, or I'm backlogged or something, or there's a computer issue or an app issue.
Yeah, you'd have to argue that you have one of those Star Trek transporter things. And then
the guy would say, "I have a half hour free time. Let's see how it works."
Right, exactly, right. You have to be smart about it. So 5-6 hours. That's how I would do it. But anyway, I know you have to get going soon, but I wanted to run through some of the the yardage stuff here. With passing yards, I usually don't bet. I feel like. Although I think something interesting you can do, and let's take these out. I kind of want to show how this works. Well, first of all, I want to ask you, like Jalen Hurts over 210.5, Patrick Mahomes is 251.5. Do you have any lean there, or do you not?
I'll tell you what. I normally do not get involved in a lot of player props of that nature, because I like to bet props that are essentially independent of who I think or who's going to win the game. In other words, if I like Philadelphia, I might play over a lot of the props because I think they're going to have a good game. However, let's say, will the team who scores first win? That's really independent of who's actually going to win the game, other than as the game unfolds. But I mean, there's no real advantage to playing a prop like that, because you don't know. And it's, as I said, mathematically over the last half dozen years or so, it's a 50-50 prop. So I'll look for some of those. I'll look for some of the, like for example, over under 3.5 field goals. I'll take a look at the kickers. Doesn't matter who I like is going to win the game. Now I might say, right now, my initial thinking, would be that I might look over because both defenses are so good. But then I take a look at Kansas City's ability to convert on third downs, and I might, be a little bit reluctant. But that doesn't mean that I'm leaning towards Philadelphia or Kansas City, or that I even care for that prop. Who's going to win the game? Are they going to have opportunities to kick field goals? And then I go back. I said, Kansas City is very good on third down, but now you got a lot of teams going for it on fourth down instead of kicking a field goal.
Right.
So that might tend now to put you towards an under, because teams will be successful in making those fourth down conversions. So, I normally, now there might be certain situations where I'll take a look at a prop and I'll say, but I know they're also going to be priced correctly. How many rushing attempts will Barkley get? That number is probably a pretty solid number. And by the time I've evaluated it, there are people at Westgate right now, and let's say it's been almost 25 minutes or so since they, I think, opened betting. There are probably groups who have hammered some of those props because they already had an idea of what they were going to do. Not only that, they also have the history of how that prop was priced 2 years ago, what it opened at, what it closed at, what the result was, because you got the same two teams playing 2 years apart.
Something I wanted to bring up here. And this is a trick that you can do on any sports book that you can have, or you can bet these player props. So if you parlay the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes over passing yards, it's plus 205, right? If you take that out and you put in Jalen Hurts, it's plus 226. You actually get a better number on that. And the reason why this is so good is because the team is trailing.
Is that over the same? Is that over the same number or the individuals? No. If you parlay it with Mahomes over X, and if you take it out, it'd be Jalen Hurts not over X, but over whatever his number is. Why?
whatever the number is.
The letter Y, not no XYZ, that
Right,
kind of thing.
right. Whatever the number is listed here.
For Hurts,
you get a better number in Hurts. If the Chiefs are winning this game, Hurts is going to have to throw, and vice versa. If the Eagles
Yeah.
are winning, the Mahomes got to throw more. So you're actually getting a better number on this. If you don't like quote unquote correlate, actually this is a better correlation than Chiefs and Mahomes. Chiefs and Hurts is better. So that's something that you can take advantage of on these sports books.
Yeah, and by the way, keep that in mind with the Saquon Barkley props as well. If Philadelphia is behind, are they going to give it to Barkley? In fact, I'd like to see if they have a first half prop on Barkley, because I don't think they'd abandon. If they're down 17-3 in the second quarter, they're not going to abandon Barkley at that point.
Right, and I wonder, Chiefs and Barkley is plus 347. Eagles and Barkley is plus 158. So this makes more sense. I mean, if the Chiefs are ahead, Barkley's not running as much. So I wouldn't do it this way, but I would do it with the quarterbacks and the receivers. As let's go to rushing, because you asked about Barkley. I don't know if they're going to have first half. They have Barkley first quarter, so they must have. They actually don't have the first half. I don't know why they only have first quarter, not first half. DraftKings might have it too. But Saquon Barkley first quarter rushing yards is 27.5.
Okay, so what's for the game? Because I said it would probably be about 110, 108 to 110.
112.5.
Okay, reasonable.
Right?
That's 112.5. That's 50. That's 28 a quarter.
If you had to bet it, would you go over or under on Barkley?
I'd have to go back and see how many runs he's had over the last 5 or 6 games, say over 20-yard runs.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I personally would go over. The Chiefs have been they were strong against the run to start the year, but in the playoffs, so we saw Joe Mixon have a good game against them. We saw James Cook last week. The Eagles are going to give the ball to Barkley, and I love their offensive line. I think that he could have a great game.
Well, see, that's one of the reasons. Excuse me for a moment. That's one of the reasons why I might go over with Barkley, because of the fact that Jalen Hurts, especially in that game last week against Washington, started to. They took what did he say? Take the straitjacket off him or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they took it off and they let him flourish in the passing game, and Brown and everything was involved in all that, and Smith and all that. That because if I was Washington last week and they tried. Jalen Hurts is going to have to beat us because we're going to focus on Barkley all game, and I would think that Kansas City would be thinking the same thing. But now that for at least the last game and maybe the last 2 games, Hurts has shown. Can you hold on just a moment, because I'm going to have to answer this call?
Sure.
I'll filibuster.
Right, exactly. As far as the other rushing props here, Kareem Hunt is 45.5. I think that's a little too high. Now, if you think the Chiefs are going to win, that has a better chance, obviously, but. Philadelphia's run defense is number 1 in the NFL. It took a bit of a hit with the Kobe Dean out, but Kareem Hunt is sharing touches with Pacheco. Like, he's getting more than Pacheco, but he's not getting the full workload. So I would go under on Kareem Hunt. The 2 quarterbacks, 40.5 and 29.5 for Hurts and Mahomes, respectively. I would go over on those. It is the Super Bowl. They're going to lay it all out. I don't see them taking it easy here. I think at least one of them.
I'm back here now. So
okay,
what did I miss?
I was talking about the quarterback rushing yards. Hurts in 40.5 and Mahomes 29.5. I think that at least one of those hits, if not both.
What's the price on both of those? Are they both minus 110 each way?
Yeah, minus 110 each way. Hurts is 40.5, minus 110. Mahomes 29.5, minus 110. What do you think about those?
I might go with Mahomes.
Okay.
I think they're going to have some designed runs for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you can correlate this with the team that's losing. The quarterback's going to have to run more. Whereas, like, the team's winning, they're just going to feed it to the running back.
Of course, I hope it stays under, because that might help my MVP pick on those 2 defensive linemen.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Pacheco under 20.5 seems interesting to me.
28.5.
20. Pacheco 20.5.
What was that? That yards or carries?
Yards. Pacheco under 20.5 yards.
Under 20.5 yards?
Yeah, he's gotten 5 carries the past 2 games. So
yeah, but I think he'll get a little bit more, because I think that they're going to utilize both backs in this game to keep Philadelphia off balance.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I do think the Eagles' run defense is great. So we'll see. I mean, maybe he's gonna be healthier. As far as receiving, maybe do receiving and then head out because I know you have to go.
Yeah.
Travis Kelsey 60.5, AJ Brown 70.5, Xavier Worthy 55.5, Devontae Smith 51.5, and then you have Goddard. You mentioned Goddard 53.5. That's a high number for a tight end, but the Chiefs' tight end defense is awful. So I like that. Hopkins under 13.5. He's barely playing. But I do like Kelsey. The Eagles' tight end defense has also been pretty bad. So I do like Kelsey over. I like Goddard over
What's Kelsey's number over?
60.5.
60.5.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Well, the only thing there is that Philadelphia's pass defense overall has been outstanding.
Yeah.
And there are going to be certain situations where Mahomes is going to be looking for Kelsey.
Well, the two playoff games recently of the Eagles, both Tyler Higbee and Zach Ertz both had big games.
Yeah, but a lot of it was when Philadelphia was ahead, especially early in that Rams game.
Yeah. I mean that's definitely true. The Eagles could be ahead too. Maybe you can correlate that as well. You can bet Kelsey over with the Eagles as well.
Yeah,
I think that would function the same way. I think with
see, if I'm going to look at player props, I might look at those anytime touchdowns.
Okay.
For certain players.
Okay. All right. Let's do this last then. So we have anytime touchdown is Hurts or Barkley minus 190, Hurts minus 110. You have Kelsey plus 130, Kareem Hunt plus 135.
Yeah, see Kelsey at plus 130, I would go. I'm not going to lay 190 on that. I'm going to take. I mean, it's reasonable to think that Mahomes knows that Kelsey is his go-to guy if they're down close and there's a coverage on the other guys. Kelsey finds a way to get open. I would imagine that number I'm expecting, and that's an anytime touchdown.
Yeah, anytime.
I would think that number is going to be bet down.
Yeah, he's 8-1 to score the first touchdown. So you can do that as well. I don't know if you're into the first touchdown, but it's always fun to do. But yeah, Kelsey plus 130. I do like that. I think both Higbee and Zach Ertz scored. So we can see that again. Any long shots here when we get to the 260s or higher? We have Marquise Brown 260, Pacheco 320, Goddard 330. I kind of like that.
Goddard absolutely 330 on that. That's a reasonable number. That's a real good number.
Yeah, I think so too.
What now? This is any touchdown. What's Mahomes plus 370?
Mahomes is plus 370. That does not include passing, obviously. Just running.
No, that's running touchdown. Yeah. Or Philly special touchdown.
Right.
The old. Philly, yeah.
I mean, it would be funny if the Chiefs got him with that, but well, maybe not funny because I would lose the bet probably. But the Juju.
I mean, I could see that. Yeah.
I would not play Juju. Hopkins, I don't play him. Eagles defense plus 650. Probably not.
No. If I'm going to play a prop, I'll play a defensive or special teams touchdown for the game. That one I usually play.
Okay. You have Noah Gray 650. I think that's not bad. P. Ryan 950. Watson has kind of disappeared ever since.
Well, if you take a look at the line in total, they're basically saying, well, let's use 48. So 24-24.
Mm-hmm.
3 touchdowns on a field goal for each team.
Right.
Okay, so you figure they're going to be, as opposed to a number where it more likely be field goals than, like 23-16 is a game where you'd expect there to be more field goals.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
14 plus 333 is 23, and 16 is 333 plus 7.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. Yeah. So I like some
Kareem Hunt. Yes, it's a low number for Kareem Hunt because there's so many possibilities there.
Yeah. AJ Brown.
AJ Brown. That's not a bad one.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like that too. I definitely like the Goddard 330. I think that's the best value that we've seen.
That's the one that jumped out at me there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing anything else here. I mean, I think Goddard is the highest number I would play. But yeah, I mean, I think we came up with some good stuff here. Like I said, I know you have to go. Real quick, do you want to talk about the logicalapproach.com? In your newsletter, which is great.
Yeah, well, they can just visit. I keep forgetting to put the stats up, but I've got a whole week to do that now, and I'm just about set, so I'll probably get that done. I keep promising it for the next couple of days. I'm going to try and get there. I may even put some power ratings up there that I'm all caught up with that. But thelogicalapproach.com, and they can see what I have there, and that's about it.
Okay. All right. Sounds
Did,
good.
did I?
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Good.
I'm trying to say, did I? I don't know if I mentioned last week to if they wanted to get a copy of the Super Bowl newsletter. Did I mention that last week?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, yeah. Just send me an email, logical7@cox.net. That's LOGICAL, the number 7 at COX.net. I'll have
Okay.
that newsletter out probably around. I'm going to say Wednesday or Thursday, because I want to do some work on the props before I put it in there, and I've been working on it all day today, and we'll be doing it the next few days to get the preliminary stuff out of the way, and then when I make my final decision, it'll probably be around Monday or Tuesday, and then do some prop stuff. So if people want to do that, just drop me an email at that address. Say that you heard me on the Walter Football podcast, and I'll put you on the list for sending it out to you.
Okay. I put in the comments here. I'm gonna pin it to the top comment on this YouTube video. So guys, definitely sign up for Andy's newsletter. There's so much great information on there. It's definitely worth it. So yeah, just send Andy an email. And like I said, I'll put it at the top. So Andy, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it. Guys, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. We'll be back on Saturday with Tom. We'll see what he has to say about these games. Well, I imagine Tom will be very upset about the results of one of those games. But yeah, looking forward to that. And have a great start to the weekend. And I'll talk to you later.